All right, everybody. Welcome to our first episode of Qumulex Radio in 2024. I am Josh. Aaron is on assignment, so cannot be here today, but he wanted me to tell everyone hello and have a very special guest today. We have Terry Kaiser from LifeSafety Power, who's been a great partner, and they make a really great product that we're really proud to offer. And Terry, if you just wanted to real quick introduce yourself and just make sure I don't know who on earth wouldn't know what you guys do. You're very well known, but just give us a little overview of what LSP is all about.
Absolutely. Terry Kaiser, reside in Cleveland, Ohio, BDM for Life Safety Power. Cover about 15 states through the Midwest. If you folks aren't aware, Life Safety Power was acquired by Assa Abloy, so I am technically an Assa Abloy employee for the past 5 years. In short, for those newbies out there, I sell power in cans. But for those guys that really know what we do, we are the premier supplier for all the major OEMs, including Qumulex, for enclosures that power the controllers and power your door locks, everything within the access control arena.
Yeah, and one of the things I really love about your product line is your, managed solutions. So, I mean, tell everybody why that's so important, because I think a lot of times people make the mistake of thinking, well, it's just power, and no big deal. I just need to get a wire to it, just need to get things turned on. But, we're a cloud solution, so we're all about remote management and remote services and, being smarter in how we approach things. Why is that so important with power?
Well, you're right, Josh. Almost everybody equivalates just putting the controllers and putting the battery back up in power and just in the can, shutting the door and forget it. No, there's so much more than just that. In fact, I always tell people there's two sides of Life Safety Power. There's the equipment side, the hardware that I just described, and then there's the intelligence side, and that's where Life Safety Power really shines. We have the capability of seeing all the AC going in and all the DC going out in that enclosure. And with that in mind, we can do four major features, seeing that power, AC going in, DC going out to every single port, but do battery management. Like I said, a lot of people just shut that door and forget about it. The battery power, the people do that all the time. They take the Sharpie out, put a born on date, and forget about it. So we have the capability of doing a reoccurring testing on that battery and actually sending notifications out to either yourself or your staff or the end user, whoever you choose, or multiple emails, and do a reoccurring battery testing where we physically drop AC power and do a load test for what that cabinet is rated for and come back with a time result. If that time result is not what you required, then it sends you an email. So it's a smarter way of replacing batteries. So one, you're not harming the environment, and two, replacing batteries as needed. That's one feature. Second feature, I can predict when a lock is going to fail. What I mean by that is I'm looking at resistance. You put in the power requirements of a strike or mag, and I can tell you if it goes above or below a certain threshold and tell you when that's going to die. Now, think about it. How do you do that now? You wait for that customer to call you and say, hey, my conference room lock is acting up. You send a truck out, you go out, find the can or the enclosure that this is located in, and then you have to track down the lock and then figure it out, disassemble that door and that lock to find out the make and model and find out that it's out of stock from your supplier. Well, that's not an efficient way. If I can tell you when that's going to happen and give you the make and model number by when you put in the power requirements, then you can roll the truck by calling the customer one time only, and replace that strike or mag. It's such a time saver and money saver.
Yeah.
Third major feature, I call it Tech 101. I can power cycle just about anything. Turn it off, turn it back on. If it comes back on, you don't have any issues. Got hung up. Well, I can power cycle just about anything remotely. And then fourth major feature, I see the temperature inside that enclosure and outside that enclosure, and I can see just about anything you hook up to my remote power notification capabilities.
No, that's incredible. And you think about, again, this push towards managed services as well as predictive services. That sounds to me like there's a lot of value there. So for one, if I have something that's acting up, instead of having to roll a truck, I can power cycle that remotely. That's huge. And you see a lot of that like in our interface, with cameras and, the door controllers and device like that are PoE, with your solution. I think that's pretty important that you can do that remotely as well. But just things like you can keep a customer happier, you can take better care of them, and you can keep that in that managed services umbrella. Because if you look at IT, the whole idea is I don't have to make a bunch of service calls, or I don't have these urgent problems, and I need to coordinate and drop everything. Things are kind of taken care of predictively and ahead of time. So like when you mentioned those locks, when I was an integrator, that was a common service call. You'd have a number of those per day where somebody called and said, hey, our door's not working. And usually that lock has reached the end of its life. I mean, you have, I believe, in your interface these rules where you can set up notifications even. So if you're managing these customers, you can get a notification and hey, you're getting to a range here, where this lock should probably be replaced. I think that's huge.
Exactly. I mean, besides just telling them that the lock is about ready to die, what if we came up to the warranty of that lock? Strikes and mags are rated for so many entrances and exits, basically card swipes. I keep count of those, and then I can set a benchmark, a particular number it hits. That date it hits, send you an email. Now you call a customer. If you notice, you're calling a customer. The customer isn't calling you with managed services. Right. So now you're holding on to that customer. That's the name of the game in our business. Hold on to that customer. Give them service. They're not going to let you go if you keep up with them. And lastly, we have reporting capabilities, not just what I just mentioned, but at least 40 different parameters that we can send reporting capabilities out now. So you the contractor, have the ability to do service agreements with your contractor. We call them PMs or SAs, service agreements or preventative maintenance agreements. What if I told you you can write those contracts around my reporting capabilities? Now I'm giving you reoccurring value, reoccurring money.
Yeah. No, it's great. Again, it all speaks to, if you look at one of the reasons that IT managed services took off, was the fact that the customer could kind of hand the ball to that managed service provider, and a lot of what they're paying for is no longer being burdened by it.
Absolutely.
That provider takes care of everything, and that used to be very costly for a lot of customers, where they were able now to offload that, and things worked great, and they didn't have to worry about it. So I think that's a transition I think we're still going through in this industry, but I think that's an amazing that even I think, again, I've said it before, I think our industry doesn't get enough credit for how tech savvy we are. We've even now taken down to the power level, where these things are very smart and intelligent and predictive, and
who would ever think power is able to be managed? Like you said, you asked me to started off with a question. It's just power, low voltage, 12 and 24 volts, but there's more to it than just that.
Oh yeah.
And that's the way we look at it at LifeSafety Power.
And even when you do have a problem and you do have to go on site, the fact that you're able to have a better understanding of where to start and where that problem is, and not have to just sift through all these wires and wiggle things around and try to figure out what is going on. I mean, and that's actually, you have another product line that's that ProWire series that
Absolutely.
I really try to push on our end, and talk a little bit about that. I think that's a really great product.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because we got really granular with the prior question on power management. Let's take it back to its most simplistic form, and that is what it looks like inside that enclosure for a 4-door, 8-door, 12-door, even 24-door system. We don't all have the luxury of having a lot of wall space and having the same tech in a panel shop building those enclosures. So what we do at Life Safety Power, we have a line called ProWire. It's just one step above our Unified. And Qumulex offers both Unified and ProWire applications. Unified is very simple. We may have a backplate in that enclosure, and you put in the controllers for that 4, 8, and 16 door locations, and we wire up our power and power distribution. But then we're relying on that contractor to properly wire to the controllers between our power and power distribution. That's where ProWire comes in. We do that cabling for you. And we also offer 3 different wiring formats. What I mean by that is we offer it in tie wrap, finger duct, better known as Panduit, and Velcro options as well. And we will wire all the way up to the controller. Now, get this, we do not provide the controllers. Of course, Qumulex provides those controllers, but we will have hanging, waiting, wired Phoenix clips that are wired to our power distribution, and the clips themselves are all labeled, and we will have labels on that back plane for where those controllers are supposed to go. So now that 4 door looks like your 8 door, your 8 door looks like 16, and 16 looks like 24. Every time they open it, it's not a surprise. You don't know what's going to jump out at you. It's very conformed, very unified, and very structured. There's a wire coloring code that we use time in, time out. Lastly, which is really important on your bigger end users, is that it's UL listed.
Mm-hmm.
So when a contractor starts wiring that cabinet, they're not all UL shops. And in my experience, I've seen very, very few UL shops that are out there. But very simplistic, if you ordered a dozen of these cabinets from me today, and then 5 years from now, the customer builds another office somewhere else, well, if you order 5 more enclosures, they're going to look identical. So there's no surprise for that technician when he opens it, what it's going to look like inside.
Yeah, no, I think that's huge. And I mean, again, as a former integrator, I mean, one of the struggles I would have was training installers to, I mean, there's a little bit of an art, I guess, sometimes to wire dressing. That's one of the harder things to get, conformity across the board. And there are some people in this world that just don't like labeling things. I don't know how to explain it, but they have an allergic reaction to it. No matter what you say, they just don't want to do it. I mean, I think, maybe I'm digging too deep in the barrel with it, but to me, it was so meaningful that you could have a larger install where you have a number of technicians that have to install, and everything can look very much the same, almost identical. Just a little bit of the handwriting is where they're connecting actually the controllers in, but again, you've got the plugs ready. They're labeled. Everything's labeled. So if anybody needs to come back and troubleshoot, not only if it's a monitored kit, do you have that information in the interface, but then when you get down to the actual hardware level, everything's been labeled. So I think it's, you're going to pay a little more upfront for the hardware, but to me, it seems like you save a whole lot of labor and effort, and things look nicer on top of that when it's done.
It's funny you bring up the labor portion for us to extend the cabling over to the controllers. So basically we do everything in a single enclosure. It's not multiple enclosures on a wall anymore. It's a single enclosure. That's the magic behind Life Safety Power. We said put all the power distribution, the controllers, the lock power, and accessory power all in one cabinet. Well, now you reduced your wall space and cost. And then we do all the wiring internally for you. So now you don't have to pay somebody to wire the internals for you. Or what if you had a national customer with multiple locations and you start using subcontractors? Wouldn't it be nice to just be able to tell them all you're doing is pulling the door cabling to the controller and that's it? They're not doing anything else. And now you know exactly what that cabinet's going to look like remotely as well. It's kind of a no-brainer. The cost for us to do it It's simple. It's rinse and repeat. We do it in a factory. It doesn't change. So,
Yeah.
and we call our basic systems flex power, flexible power, build it any way you want. Honestly, there's an adage I always tell people, I can put 3 engineers in a room and tell them to build me a 16-door enclosure. They'll come back with 10 different ways of doing it, but all 10 are right because you never know what you're going to run into. Well, that's the nice thing about Life Safety Power. We don't care what you put in it. We will build it any way you want.
Yeah. No, and you mentioned that, we of course we're a Mercury OEM, HID Mercury OEM. So, if you look at our website and you see all of our QXEP door kits, those are all based on Life Safety Power, using the HID Mercury platform. And I saw you guys had a product release. I actually didn't know that I was going to be seeing this today, but I actually saw that you're actually offering this for another controller we're compatible with, which is the Axis, the 1610 and the 1210 series. I mean, that's interesting to me. I've heard rumors, but I wasn't expecting to see that announced. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's been a while coming. It's really the OEM access allowing us to work with them. And now we have a backplane that houses or has a pattern in that backplane for their controllers.
Mm-hmm.
So where you would have a backplane for Mercury controllers, now we have one for Axis as well. We do it for many other manufacturers as well, but that's the key. And that's what starts off unified managed services, is that we have a backplane for each of those different type controllers. So we just recently released and put on our website the backplanes for access control. That's a
Mm-hmm.
mouthful.
Yeah. I deal with that a lot. Yeah.
But it is, and we work very closely with them to give them a
Yeah.
product offering as well. And I know their software is able to integrate then into other manufacturers like Qumulex,
Mm-hmm.
then so that you
Yeah.
can use their controllers. Well, you as a contractor, if you were a contractor, you're gonna scratch your head and say, okay, great. Now I got a different type of controller. How's this gonna fit on this backplane? Do I have to drill new holes? Do I have to have different power requirements? Do I have to control the inputs and outputs differently? No. Life Safety Power has already done that all for you.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's great. So I think that was a really, really excellent addition. And I know a lot of our customers will be happy to see that. And um, I'm sure I've probably suggested it a number of times. I'm sure many people have. So that's really great to see. Um, are there any trends that you're seeing, in the power management industry moving into this year? Are you seeing like more people going to managed, or are there other things I'm not even thinking of that you're seeing?
Absolutely. The first question you asked me more about managed, so you came right out of the gate, and managed services. Yes, definitely. We're seeing more and more of that. All the contractors out there, I shouldn't say all, but the majority of them don't have the luxury of a work staff to be in a panel shop to build these enclosures. Let's face it, to do what we do in a 16-door enclosure in a pro wire application, it takes a contractor, a guy in a panel shop, not on site, but in a panel shop, to do a 16-door enclosure. It takes them 6 to 8 hours to do that. Well, let's say you got a job where you got 10 of these. Well, you just lost that tech for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Think about it. That's 10 days. That's 10 working days. They don't have the luxury of techs to do that. Techs should be doing what they should be doing. And that's technical applications, programming, getting in front of the customer, making sure that it's doing what it should be doing. Let us take care of the cabling. I mean, that's a mood point. So ProWire is very, very strong and a big trend. As I mentioned, managed power. And then also, I'm starting to see a few more PoE applications. We have a whole line of
Yeah.
PoE applications where, honestly, from a single twisted pair, I can control up to 8 doors and charge the battery over a single twisted pair. And I don't have to give the power supply 120 AC. We're doing it all over PoE. So we're seeing a lot more edge, what I refer to as edge control devices.
No, absolutely. Any other trends that you're seeing out there?
Still, there's a few of the manufacturers out there that have supply chain issues, not life safety power.
Right.
In fact, we will always give an estimated ship date of 3 weeks, but the factory is actually pushing equipment out. If you ordered a dozen 16 door enclosures from me, I can get them out in 8 to 10 working days. And if necessary, if that customer decides to pull the trigger and you need to start on the job a week from now, I can get enclosures out in something called a fast track in 1 to 4 days. You
That's
just
great.
pay a slight bit more. It's 10% of the total bill of material, and you choose your shipping method. But we can get enclosures out in 1 to 4 days. So I would say that is a new trend. But remote monitoring is huge, and you will see something called our MSM tool, which has eyes on every single enclosure that you have. So if you have a customer that has 50, 100 enclosures, whether they're remote or not, they will be able to see all the enclosures from one pane of glass. And we're starting to see that tool also incorporate other ASA Abloy family remote capability services.
Absolutely. Well, Terry, that was pretty informative and always enjoy talking to you.
Thank
So
you.
really glad you're able to join us today. And want to mention a couple things too. I think sometimes because of the quality of your managed solution and your ProWire and things like that, I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding that all of your products are on the high end of cost. That's not accurate at all. I mean, you've got the very basic approach as well. I think you've got really 3 levels: the non-unified backplane, then the backplane, and then the ProWire, and then managed, is available within all of that as well. So you can, in my opinion, I think you can really meet anybody's budget well. But I think the idea is we want to start selling our customers, on the idea that there's these benefits, and that there really is a savings and then a revenue opportunity over time with that, by
Absolutely.
going the more
I
advanced
touched
route.
on reoccurring revenue. So now I'm making you money to make an intelligent enclosure. I tell you what, it costs more to roll a truck than it does to add
Sure
intelligent
does.
remote management into any enclosure. We're backwards compatible and against our competition. I stride for stride, same cost, within a couple percentage points between the two. We run neck and neck, but we offer so much more.
No, absolutely. And the other thing I always like to throw out there too is, of course, we have a relationship and products that we offer, but at the same time, if you have other solutions that you're looking at that are not Qumulex or Mercury or Axis, you have several manufacturers that you support with your products. So there's a lot of different controllers and cards that they're going to fit in there well. Quite a list. So definitely check LSP out. And we will have, hard to believe it's already coming up soon, but we have the big show this year, ISC West. Every year is the big one. So our booth is 2071 for anyone that's going, stop by. We actually have an example of our LSP powered door kit. So you can take a look in person. And of course, LSP always has a really awesome booth. Your booth is always one of my favorite. I really love it. And you do a really great job of showing all the different products, whether it's wall mount, rack mount, PoE or direct power. I mean, I think a customer can go there and really get a true education, on all that's available. So
appreciate it. If you're ever out at ISC West, just look for the ASA Abloy or GSX, the ASA Abloy booth. We are usually right next to it or behind it or side of it, since we're part of their family. Absolutely.
That small company, ASA Abloy.
Yes.
That probably owns a fourth of the show floor, right? No, that's great. Well, Terry, thanks again. Really glad to have you on. And for everybody else, check us out at Qumulex.com. And otherwise, we will see you next time.
Josh, I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.